I used to believe that silence was peaceful, that quiet spaces held healing, patience, love. But the kind of silence that eventually took over my life wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that grows like mold, slow and unseen, until it eats everything you ever cared about. That silence began the day my son brought home the woman he said he wanted to marry. Her name was Kira. She walked into my small, cozy living room with high heels that clicked like a warning and eyes that scanned everything as if she were appraising it, judging it. When Daniel introduced her, she gave me a smile, sharp, polite, and thin as paper. I tried to overlook the stiffness. Love makes us hopeful, but hope is a fragile thing. From the beginning, she made it very clear she didn't think much of me. I ran a tiny homemade soap business from my kitchen, a small passion project that kept me busy after my husband passed. It didn't make much money back then, but it brought me joy. Kara, however, saw it as a symbol of failure. "It's cute for a hobby," she said during her first visit, glancing at my shelves of lavender and honey soaps as if they were embarrassing clutter. Daniel laughed awkwardly. I pretended not to hear at first. The criticism came lightly, soft jabs disguised as jokes, comments about people who lack ambition, questions about why I didn't upgrade my life. These things she said in front of my son, as if testing how much she could get away with. And every time Daniel stayed silent, she grew bolder. The real campaign began after they got married. Kira took control of everything, holidays, gatherings, even the weekends I used to spend with my son. Suddenly he was too busy, or not feeling well. But I could see through the excuses. They weren't his words. They were hers, words fed to him with honeyed poison. Once, when I showed up with homemade food, hoping to surprise them, Kira opened the door but didn't move aside. "We're heading out," she said flatly, though she stood in gym clothes and Daniel sat behind her on the couch with no shoes on. "Oh, I didn't know," I replied gently. "I made your favorite stew. Please don't just come by," she said. "It makes things uncomfortable." Daniel avoided my eyes. That night, I cried quietly while washing dishes, my tears mixing with soap bubbles. But things grew worse. Kira began to twist everything I did. If I gave a gift, she claimed it was manipulation. If I offered help, she said it was control. If I asked to visit, she said I was interfering. Daniel, caught in the middle, began to drift further and further away. He stopped calling regularly. Birthdays became text messages. Holidays became pictures on social media instead of shared meals. Then came the moment I still remember with a pain that never fully healed. Daniel came to my home alone, avoiding my eyes the entire time. "Mom, I think we need a little space," he said. Space. The word felt like a punch. "Kira feels uncomfortable," he continued. "She says you judge her, and I don't want conflict in my marriage." I stood there, cold spreading through my chest. "How long?" I whispered. He swallowed hard. "Just for now." But no, became 12 years, 12 long years of unanswered calls. 12 years of gifts returned unopened, 12 years of birthdays spent alone, holidays with no laughter, nights waiting by the window like a fool who still believed her son would come home. Kira made sure my number was blocked on both their phones. She blocked me on social media. Even letters I mailed came back marked, "Returned to sender." There were days I screamed into pillows. Nights where I asked God what I had done to deserve this. But in the quiet hours, when grief threatened to swallow me whole, I turned back to the only thing that brought me peace. My little soap business. The one thing Kira mocked. The one thing she said I should give up. Funny how life works. The very thing she dismissed would one day become the foundation of my strength and my sweetest revenge. Grief has a way of hollowing a person out, carving deep spaces inside them where hope used to live. In the first few years after Daniel cut me off, I felt like a house with all its lights turned off, standing but empty. But pain also sharpens you. It makes you aware of every small thing that still brings comfort. For me, that comfort came in the form of lavender and honey and eucalyptus oil. My little soap business, once just a distraction, slowly became the anchor that kept me from drowning in sorrow. Every morning, when the ache of loneliness pressed against my ribs, I would step into my kitchen, turned workshop, and begin my routine. The scents filled the air, warm and soothing. I would melt oils, stir mixtures, shape bars, wrap packages. Each motion a prayer, a whispered attempt to mend a piece of my heart. At first, business was slow. 10 orders a week turned into 12, then 15. Nothing spectacular. But every sale felt like a tiny affirmation that I still mattered to someone. Then, everything changed because of a stranger on the internet. One afternoon, a young woman bought a bundle of my soaps at a local craft fair. She recorded a short video review, barely a minute long, where she gushed about how my products helped her daughter's eczema. She tagged my tiny shop account and uploaded it. I went to sleep thinking nothing of it. By morning my world had transformed. My phone buzzed nonstop, notifications, messages, order confirmations. At first, I thought someone hacked my account. But no, it was real. That one video had gone viral overnight, reaching hundreds of thousands of people who wanted exactly what I had been lovingly crafting for years. Within 3 days, I had more orders than I could fulfill alone. Within 3 weeks, I had to hire help, then more help. Within 3 months, my tiny passion project had become a booming business. I reinvested everything, rented a small warehouse, bought better equipment, turned my simple logo into a brand, hired women from my neighborhood, single mothers, widows, women who needed the kind of steady work I once prayed for. Every step of growth felt surreal. Me, the woman Kira mocked for having a cute hobby, was now running a thriving company with distributors, wholesale clients, and thousands of loyal customers. I kept waiting for the joy to feel empty, for grief to overshadow it. But instead, something new blossomed inside me: confidence, a quiet, steady flame. And with that confidence came a dream I had never dared to imagine: my own home. A real home, not just a roof over my head, but a place that reflected who I had become: strong, independent, whole. After 2 years of success, I did it. I bought a mansion. A beautiful, sprawling estate with a long driveway, a garden big enough to plant every flower I loved, a dedicated workshop building, and balconies that overlooked rolling hills and endless sky. When I signed the final closing papers, I felt tears slip down my cheeks, not from sorrow this time, but from victory. For once, the silence around me wasn't painful, it was peaceful. I moved in quietly, without announcement, without any need to prove anything to anyone. My life finally felt full again. I hosted workshops, held retreats, hired more staff, and filled the empty rooms with laughter, creativity, and purpose. But peace never lasts long when the universe has unfinished business. The very next morning, barely 15 hours after I moved in, I heard the crunch of tires on my gravel driveway. A sleek silver SUV slowly approached the mansion steps. My stomach tightened. When the doors opened, my breath caught in my throat. Daniel stepped out first, older, tired-looking, but still my son. Then Kira emerged, dressed head to toe in designer labels, adjusting her sunglasses like she owned the place. Behind them were 2 children I had never met, my grandchildren. I realized with a painful twist in my heart. They walked toward me with matching smiles that didn't reach their eyes. "Mom!" Daniel called out, as if we hadn't been strangers for 12 years. Kira linked her arm through his and beamed. "We're moving in," she declared brightly, sweeping her gaze across the mansion. "You have all this extra room, it's perfect for us." I stared at them in stunned silence. 12 years of absence, 12 years of cruelty, 12 years of pretending I didn't exist. And now, because I had something they wanted, they were back. But I wasn't the same woman they had walked away from. Not anymore. For a long moment, I simply stood there, frozen on the front steps of the mansion I had bought with my own hands, my own pain, my own strength. Daniel and Kira looked so confident, so sure I would open my arms and welcome them in like nothing had happened. As if 12 years of abandonment could be washed away with one fake smile. "Mum," Daniel said again, stepping forward. "We're going to stay here for a while. Just until we get things sorted out." I blinked. "Stay here?" Without even asking me first. Kira let out a breezy laugh, the kind she used whenever she wanted to sound innocent while being insulting.
"Oh, don't be dramatic. You have a mansion now."
"You don't need all this space. And family shares everything, right?" Her words were dipped in sweetness, but her eyes gave her away. This wasn't a visit. It was an invasion. They weren't here to reconnect. They were here to take. I noticed it then. The packed suitcases, boxes, a cat carrier. They hadn't come to talk. They had come to move in. I inhaled slowly, steadying myself. "Why are you here, really?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "We had a rough patch financially. The kids need stability. We thought it'd be good for everyone if we lived together for a while." I almost laughed. Not long ago, I wasn't even allowed to send a birthday card. Now suddenly I was childcare, free housing, and financial support, all in one. Kara stepped forward, already eyeing the rooms through the windows. "I want the master suite, by the way. The one with the balcony. The kids can take the entire east wing." I raised my hand sharply. "Stop," she blinked, startled that I would interrupt her. "You can't just assign rooms in a home that isn't yours," I said quietly. Kira scoffed. "Well, technically it will be ours. You know Daniel is your only child. He'll inherit everything anyway. So consider this an early transition." My heart clenched, not because of her audacity, but because Daniel didn't correct her. He just stood there, eyes lowered, letting her speak for him. Again, I took a breath. There was a time I would have cried, begged, pleaded for kindness. That time was long gone. "Come inside." I said. We need to talk. The words lit up Kira's face. She thought I had surrendered. Inside the mansion's foyer, they looked around with unhidden greed. Kira dragged her fingers across the marble table. Ooh, finally something in your life that's not cheap. I ignored the sting. I had something more important planned. We entered the great room, where sunlight poured in through tall windows. Sit, I said. They did. Then I dropped the first piece of truth. This mansion is not my home. Daniel frowned. What are you talking about? You live here? No, I said calmly. This is my business retreat center, a commercial property. Not a residence. Kira's smile vanished. What? Every room here is registered for staff use or paying guests, only no one, not even me, can move in without going through the proper process. Daniel leaned forward. Mom, come on, don't do this. I kept my voice steady. If you'd like to stay, you'll need to book rooms. I can offer you the family rate. I slid a printed brochure across the table. $400 per week, per person. Kira shot up from her seat. This is insane. You're charging us. Your son. I looked directly at her. For 12 years, I wasn't your family. Her cheeks burned red, and, I added, before you accuse me again of being manipulative or toxic. I reached for a folder I kept in a drawer. Inside were screenshots, photos, copies of letters I had sent, notes I had received. The cruel messages Kira had written about me. Things she forgot existed. Proof I had kept not out of revenge but out of heartbreak. I slid the folder toward Daniel. He opened it. His face went pale. His hands trembled. Kira, you told me she said these things. You said she didn't want to see us. You said. Daniel, don't. Kira sputtered. She's twisting everything. No, he whispered, voice cracking. It's you. Their marriage, built on manipulation, began to crumble right there. Kira grabbed her bag and stormed toward the door. This isn't over. Daniel sat frozen, tears gathering in his eyes. For the first time in 12 years, he finally saw the truth. But I wasn't done. Sweet revenge wasn't about cruelty. It was about clarity, boundaries, power reclaimed, and I had just taken the first step. For hours after they left, the house was silent again. Quiet but not the cold, aching silence I had lived with for 12 years. This one was different. It was steady, strong. A reminder that the life I had built was mine, earned through sweat and heartbreak, not inherited or taken. Still, when the front door slammed behind Kira and Daniel stood frozen with the folder in his trembling hands, something inside me shifted. I saw not the grown man who had allowed his wife to poison him, but the boy I had once raised. The boy who used to hug me after school. The boy who used to run to me for comfort. But broken people can't be healed in a single moment. After a long, shaky breath, Daniel finally stood up. He wiped his face roughly, avoiding my eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. Those two words cracked the surface of my heart. But I didn't let them melt me. Not yet. Daniel, I said softly, you should go. Think about everything. Then, if you want to talk, come back alone. He nodded slowly, ashamed. Then he left, closing the door gently behind him. That night I sat on the balcony, wrapped in a shawl, watching the moonlight wash over the garden. I should have felt triumphant. I had finally stood up for myself, something I hadn't done in years. But instead, I felt an old ache slipping through me, not sharp like before, but dull and lingering. Because at the end of all the betrayal, manipulation, and years of silence, he was still my son. And mothers don't unlove their children, even when they break your heart. 3 days passed. I kept myself busy with work, product orders, workshops, staff meetings, but every time tires crunched on the gravel outside, my pulse jumped. On the 4th day, he came back. This time he was alone. He stood at the bottom of the steps, shoulders slumped, eyes red-rimmed, looking older than his 38 years. Mom, can we talk? I nodded and led him to the garden, the place where my lavender grew, the place that saved me during the darkest years. For a moment, he just sat there, staring at the flowers like they held all the answers he had been too afraid to ask. Then, slowly, he turned to me. You were right, he whispered. About everything. I didn't speak. I simply waited. He swallowed hard. Kira told me you hated her. She said you tried to pull me away. She said you thought she wasn't good enough for our family. A bitter smile crossed his face. I believed her. I wanted peace. I didn't want fights. And it was easier to blame you than face the truth. That she was manipulating you. I finished quietly. He nodded. I let her. I let her take me away from you. I let her raise my kids without you. His voice cracked. I missed 12 years, Mom. 12 years I can never get back. My throat tightened, but I stayed steady. You hurt me deeply, Daniel. The kind of hurt that leaves marks. But I'm not closing the door on you. He looked up, hopeful. But, I continued gently, I can't pretend it never happened. You can't just walk back into my life because it's convenient. Trust is built, not demanded. He nodded immediately. I'll do whatever it takes. I'm done letting other people make decisions for me. There it was. Growth. Accountability. Maybe even the beginning of healing. Over the next weeks, Daniel came by regularly. Sometimes he helped in the workshop. Sometimes he sat with me during lunch. Sometimes he just listened. And slowly, I started recognizing the son I once knew. Meanwhile, his marriage fell apart. Without control, status, or manipulation, Kira unraveled. She filed for divorce, taking what she could and leaving the rest behind. For the first time, Daniel wasn't defending her. He simply accepted that their foundation had been built on lies. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Daniel stood with me on the balcony. "Mum," he said quietly, "thank you for not giving up on me." I slipped my hand into his, small, tentative but real. "I never gave up," I whispered. "I just learned to stand." And in that moment, standing in the mansion I built from my pain, holding the hand of a son finally finding his way back, I understood something. Revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply becoming everything they said you couldn't be, and letting the truth speak for itself. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is healing louder than their betrayal.